What's up, YouTube? We're here today with a D4 video on the top 5 things that I want to see coming with Season 1 of Diablo 4. Now, we do know that we're going to have an announcement coming at the time of filming this video tomorrow from the Diablo 4 devs. And as we just found out, Rod Ferguson is going to be on that podcast or that dev chat, whatever they're calling it these days. And they're probably going to give us some information about what the theming of Season 1 is going to be and when the date of Season 1 is going to be, along with a bunch of other tidbits of information that we've all been waiting for. There are some things that I personally would like to see, and we were going over this in the last stream, and we'll probably go over it again tomorrow. Some things that we'd like to see in Diablo 4 Season 1. Some of these things have already been talked about by the developers, but they're not coming until a later date, which I would like to see some of those things pushed up because they do feel really important and a lot of people have been asking for them. So the very first thing that I personally would like to see going into Season 1 is going to be quality of life updates that are pretty unanimously agreed upon. So that's going to be the gem pouch, right? We already know the gem pouch is coming, but they said it probably won't be until Season 2, which just doesn't make much sense. Now, I'm sure you're probably tired of people, talking about the gem pouch and how it's not coming out and how people want it, but we got to keep harping on it because these are really important things that, quite honestly, they were talked about in the betas leading up to the launch of the game. So it's not like they didn't know that this was something that everybody's going to be asking for. I don't see a reason why it's something that couldn't be added into Season 1. So the gem pouch is going to be first, and second is going to be right along with that because it shares a similar problem. Is going to be stash space. Now, this is still in the first part of the things I want to see for Season 1. This is all part of the quality of life updates that I would like to see in Season 1. So it's going to be the stash space for everything. More stash space specifically, more inventory space. The codex system, right? That needs to be the tab for the codexes just doesn't make sense, or the powers, the aspects that you pull off your weapons, rather. It just needs more space. It's so limited. It just doesn't make sense, especially if you're playing any more than one character. It's tough on one character, let alone if you want to play more than one. A search function also. This is going to be along with the quality of life updates. A search function for your inventory, for your stash. It just doesn't make sense. I'm sure this is some sort of a limitation that we have with the console system. But there's just no reason why we shouldn't be able to type in the thing that we're looking for, right? If I want to type in pulverized into the bar, I should be able to see all of my legendary powers or items that have the word pulverized in them somewhere. I don't see why this is not a thing that was not added in on the launch of the game. It should have shipped with that. It doesn't make sense not to. The other thing, and this is just a personal thing because it's kind of just annoying, but I'm sure a lot of people would agree, would be a full reset for the Paragon board. Now, some people would like to have completely saved builds, where you make a whole build out with your skill tree and your Paragon board, boom, save it, and you can swap between them for a gold cost or whatever the gold cost would be to do a full reset. I don't personally need all of that, but I do not want to have to go through and individually click every single Paragon node that is in my build to reset it. And not only do you have to just click all of them, you have to click them all in order, right? Because you can't get rid of one without getting rid of the one before it if you have it allocated. It is really, really tedious when you're trying to respec your build. It just feels like something that wasn't tested. I can't imagine that somebody who was testing the game, or I won't put this on the testers because they probably did report the problem or the annoyance and it just wasn't acted on. But I can't imagine that the devs, played the game, they made it to level 90, decided they wanted to respec their character, and went through and did a full reset by clicking every single Paragon node, and then we're like, yeah, that's good, let's ship it that way. So that would be nice to just have a button, boom, it puts the glyphs back in your inventory. It says this is going to cost 2.5 million gold. Would you like to confirm? Bang, hit the button, everything is reset from fresh, and you start building your new Paragon board. That's the first thing. That's the group of first things I would like to see going into Season 4, and I would quantify them all into just quality of life updates for the game. The second thing is going to be trade system buffs. So we don't have an SSF mode. That's actually my honorable mentions at the end. We'll chuck it in there now as a SSF mode. But while we don't have an SSF mode, that means that we should be able to trade. And honestly, the trading is extremely lackluster in the game right now. It almost doesn't exist. You have to use third-party websites or Discords to be able to find people to trade with. And the reason for that is, if you guys don't know, the only people that you can see in your chat is people that are in your shard in town. And that's like 8 to 10 people, you included. So the odds of finding somebody who has the thing that you need and they're just sitting in town, and they have the item in their inventory to trade, the odds of that are very, very almost zero, right? So there's just no way reasonably to find somebody that has the item you need and is willing to trade it to you for a price that you both find fair and whatnot. If somebody's in town, they're either A, salvaging so they can get back out to get farming, or B, they're AFK, right? Those are the only two reasons that people are in town, right? Which is the only time that you're really going to be able to find somebody to trade with. There needs to be a trade channel in the chat, right? There should be an option for that. There should be something Blizzard backed as a trade forms that actually has some meaningful purpose to it to add into the game. And then the way they got around this in D2, which doesn't work in D4, was that you would name your lobbies that you would make, right? So you would make a lobby and you would name it, for trade Shaco, and put that you need a storm shield or something in the description, right? So then people join your game like, hey, I got a storm shield, you got a Shaco? Yeah, look, this is my Shaco. Boom, trade. You probably got scammed somewhere in there because that's the way D2 worked. But there was a way to communicate what you needed through the title of your room. And while you're waiting for people to join, you could be doing your Mephisto run, doing your Pindle run, doing your Chaos Sanctuary run, right? To be getting more loot so that you could get more stuff to trade, open up a cow level, all that kind of stuff. And it just felt very fluid and it made sense. There is trading. You have the ability to trade. It is extremely limited. You can only trade rares, essentially. Even with the limited trading we have, there's not an easy way. There's a lot of friction, I guess you would call it, in being able to actually make a trade. So it just feels really meaningless currently. I've never one time seen somebody in the chat asking for an item. And the only thing I hear about is people selling, perfect items for 2 billion gold in a Discord somewhere, which is just going to be RMT come new season. The other thing, so that's number 2, which is trade system buffs. Number 3 is going to be some form of content between 60 to 90. If you've made it to the end game, if you're a player who has played at least one character through the campaign, leveled up to at least 60 and probably up to 90, you know that there is a huge gap in content in the game. So the game feels pretty good. There's a pretty nice progression feeling up from level 1 to level 60. And then once you hit 60 and you're going up to 90, there's nothing there at all. There's nothing. It's like they just cut it out of the game, right? Like it feels like there should be something there. You can feel the thing missing, but it's just not there. You have most of your gear min-max by level 60, level 70 or so. So you don't have any meaningful gear progression. You're just getting here and there items a couple of % better, which is nice to have that small progression through your items. But what are you getting that progression for? There's no meaningful content up until you get to Uber Lilith at level 100. There's no extra bosses, right? Eventually, well, I'm a druid. Maybe this isn't the same for other classes. But I just tank all of the world boss hits, right? I just stand there. I get hit by all of it. My health doesn't move. So what am I getting better gear for? I do enough damage to clear any nightmare sigils or anything I want, any world content I want. I feel like I'm doing it for nothing. So it would be nice if was added back into the game. Maybe it wasn't ready yet when the game launched. They pulled it out, whatever it is, and and they're going to be ready to put it back in with season 1. And no, I'm not saying I want a world tier 5 because that doesn't solve the problem. I see a lot of people saying they want world tier 5 added into the game. Mr. Paul Tassi, the guy with the worst takes on Diablo 4 I've ever seen in my life, he says they need world tier 5 to make the game feel good. And that's not going to do anything. It's going to be literally the same exact thing that we have right now. where you're just skipping to the highest world tier because your character is geared and it's ready to go. And, world tier 5 is just going to be the new world tier 4, and, world tier 1, 2, and 3, and if they add 5, 4 would be absolutely pointless then, right? So adding another world tier doesn't actually add any kind of content into the game. Now, they could artificially add more content with world tier 5 if they were to say add another tier of items, but all they're doing then is just getting rid of the ancestral tier of items, right? Nobody cares about regular items. Nobody cares about sacred items. The only thing that matters is ancestral items when you're in world tier 4. Everything else just becomes completely useless. Hey, and on that topic, why do white and blue items even drop on the ground? Why do they even exist? Can somebody please answer that for me? I can't figure it out. So number 4 for me, and things that I'd like to see in season 1, is going to be world boss scaling. This is a small thing. And a lot of people are fine with the world boss being a loot pinata, but I just wish it had some sort of a challenge to it. Have you guys ever been to a world boss and some level 100 necro is there and he just kills it in the first 10 seconds of it spawning? Sure, you get your loot and you can get out and you can get back to farming whatever you're farming. That's very nice. But it would be nice if it was at least a little bit of a challenge. It could scale maybe like, there's only a certain number of people that can be in the area, right? That it gets sharded. Maybe it could be, when it spawns, could be based off of the average level of the people who are in the area, or something to that effect. Average item level of people who are in the area. So that way it could actually be a challenge, for the people there. At least a little bit of a challenge, I would like to have to dodge attacks, and I would like that, for it to actually, take more than 10 seconds to kill. Stuff like that. Not mandatory. I mean, a lot of people just don't care, but for me personally, that's the thing. Their drops for it are pretty mediocre also. It's just like doing the Tree of Whispers, right? Maybe you get a legendary out of it. It's probably scrapped anyway. Doesn't matter. So some more rewarding drops to go along with the little more of a challenge would also be nice. And maybe if we weren't seeing the same, 2 or 3 bosses over and over and over again every time you do a world boss, that'd be nice too. 3 is definitely fine for the launch of the game, but going into the seasons here, I would like to see more world bosses popping up and more variety of bosses and areas to be fighting these world bosses in. I think personally that would just make it a little bit more entertaining. So number 5, and this is going to be a big one. This is one that could really going to affect and change the way you play the game. Number 5 for me on the things that I'd like to see going into season 1 is going to be more in-depth building of the Paragon board. Now, I was an early adopter of hating on the Paragon board when it was announced. It looked very mediocre. It has the name Paragon in it, so I just am predetermined to hate it because the Paragon system was terrible in D3. But having played the game now, the Paragon board is actually kind of cool. It does work the way they intended it to work. I think it just needs a little bit more. There's not a lot of boards to currently work with, but again, I do understand we're in pre-season 1, so as far as the launch goes, I think it's perfectly fine, but I don't want it to get stagnant going into the future here. I do think that we need to have a little bit more Paragon boards to work with that have a little bit more variety, that give you different branches and ways to, make your builds pop off. What would also be good is some more interesting glyphs. So currently there's, if you're playing X build, you just automatically know you're using this, and this glyph because those ones are they're the only ones that really even work for your build. It would be nice if there was multiple glyphs that work with builds, so that way you could choose, okay, well, I can go with this one if I want to do this. I can go with this one if I want to do that. I can do this one if I want to do that. This one has attack speed. You can't fit them all in. There should be more glyphs than is possible to choose, right? So that way you actually have to make decisions and the ways you want to build your build, right? So say if you're playing a shred build, right? There's currently like 5 glyphs. Every single person is going to be using the same 5 glyphs because they're just the best 5 glyphs. Not only are they the best 5 glyphs, which is always going to happen because of metagaming, but they're actually the only 5 glyphs that make sense to run. And that part is the problem. So while metagaming might say that you have to use these 5, it would be nice if there were, say, 3 to 5 more, which were only just a couple of % worse in terms of metagaming and could change up the dynamics of the build. Maybe give you more movement speed, give you more crit than the other ones do, or whatever the case may be. So that way you can choose the way that you want to build it. What would also be nice for the Paragon boards would be maybe if there was other things to socket. And this can come as a seasonal theme maybe in the future, or maybe just something that they add into the base game. And also might be a pretty okay way that they might add runes into the future, I was thinking. So the sockets are currently for the glyphs, but it would be cool if there were different things that you could also socket in there. And this would go along with my previous idea of having more interesting glyphs. It would also be more interesting and more build defining if there were other things that you could put into the glyph sockets, like maybe runes or jewels or, you know, other things of that nature. So just ways to build on the Paragon board in general. I think they have a really good base for the Paragon board currently, and it would be nice to see if they could just build on that going into the future and not let it fall flat on its face. Now, there's a couple of honorable mentions that didn't make the top 5 list, but I do think that they should be mentioned, and I already mentioned one of them earlier, and that's going to be SSF mode. So SSF mode is going to fix numerous things. I mean, I always play SSF when possible, so it would fix the trading problem for me right off the bat, because I wouldn't have to worry about trading as I have SSF mode. B, it would also take away, as far as racing goes in the competitive community, it would take away the need to group, because if you're doing some kind of a race, right, which a lot of competitive players do, like, you know, Dat Mods, Zizaran, Steel Mage, all the, like, the PoE guys and stuff like that, Woody Joe, I feel like they all would prefer to have an SSF mode as far as the racing goes, because it's just more fair and it doesn't force you into doing these degenerate things in groups, right? What can you do in groups? Well, you could split farm every dungeon in the game, right? You can have a group of, you have a group of players and you all go to a different dungeon, and it counts as everybody completing each of those dungeons in your group, which means you can farm your renown 75% faster than a solo player can, or more than 75% faster. It's significantly faster. You're doing 5 dungeons to a solo player's 1. It's really, really bad. There's also the problem, and this actually goes into grouping too, is that groups can dupe sigils forever, and this is a thing that really needs to be fixed. So if you have a really good sigil, say you have a Burrows sigil with Magic Find on it, level 85 or something, you can keep that sigil going. You can dupe that key infinitely. I've seen groups playing the same sigil for 48 hours plus by passing it off to a friend and keeping it going overnight. They pass it back in the morning. And just this sigil just keeps on getting duped over and over again. The layouts are always the same. The mobs are always the same. The events are always the same. The mods, all of it is exactly the same. So when you get any extremely good sigil, you never have to run anything else ever again. That needs to be fixed. It is only doable in group play, but aside from it being in group play, it needs to be fixed because it's a bug. The last honorable mention that I have is give us the cow level. I think we're all pretty convinced that while we have the hints to the cow level, it's not actually in the game yet. So it would be nice to get that cow level. And I think that it would build up to really big hype in season 1 for the cow level to be released. It's a big thing. If for any, returning D2 player or even D3, they had Whimsyshire and a weird cow level in there. But if you can, if the cow level gets not announced, right, because you want the players to find it, but if the cow level gets teased and then somebody finds it, it's going to bring such big hype, in YouTube videos and TikToks and clips, and you're going to get such a big influx of players. People are going to see that and they're going to be like, oh my God, I remember doing the cow level in D2. Now I'm going to go play D4. I'm going to get to the cow level, right? I think it would be a marketing genius to get the cow level in the game, and hopefully it's done really, really well. We can only hope. But guys, hey, I don't want this to be too long of a video. Tomorrow we have a huge announcement coming. Let's take a look at that right here. We have Rod Ferguson saying, I convinced Pez Radar to let me on the Diablo dev stream tomorrow. Maybe I'm the corruption. Looking forward to talk about season 1 and all of the non-zombie things we are doing. Non-zombie things? Okay. And what he was doing was quote tweeting a Diablo tweet that says corruption is taking hold. See what new evil threatens sanctuary during tomorrow's developer live stream at 11 a.m. PT. Now, when that's going on, we will be live, right? We will be streaming tomorrow in the morning. This will be happening at the tail end of our stream. We are going to be live watching it on Twitch, twitch.tv/itsYoJimbo, my same name on here. And we're going to get all the deets on what this season is going to be. So come check us out. And guys, if you want to see more D4 content from anybody making D4 content, make sure you like the video so your algorithm knows. And if you want to see more of my D4 content, subscribe to the channel. Come back and see more. I'll see you guys later. Adios, muchachos.